Hostages. It was never about the hostages. His plan is already underway. You won't be able to stop him this time. Stop who? Perseus.
Bullshit. Perseus is dead.
Dead? All this time and you didn't even know. Perseus will watch the West.
Hudson will want to hear about this. Let's sweep the tarmac for survivors and get to Langley.
Who the fuck is Perseus?
Welcome everybody, Josh here, back again today with a brand new and special product review. Today we're talking about this, which is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War on the PlayStation 4, the PS5, as well as the Xbox Series S and X with backwards compatibility. Now, you can play this on the older generation of hardware. This is the latest installment of the Call of Duty Black Ops franchise. It's taking place after the events of Black Ops 1 as well as Black Ops 2. This is our introduction to the new characters of this series. And what is the storytelling of Black Ops Cold War? Well, essentially it's about America and Russia. We are going at war with the Russians this time, which in the previous Call of Duty franchise you've always had the Russians being the main bad guys, which I think is a little bit cliched at this point, but I digress. I think that this game and the storytelling within it is amazing. I think this is a little bit more bombastic and crazy in terms of the set pieces as it usually is in the Call of Duty franchise, but elevated to a T. And I think that this Call of Duty game is no exception. Now, this is made by Treyarch, who's made some of the previous other Call of Duty games, and Treyarch as well as Infinity Ward typically make some of the greater Call of Duty games in the franchise. And this game is awesome. From the moment that you start this game, you know this is going to be a really special experience. With you and your crew on top of a building, you're trying to interrogate a Russian operative that you think might be Perseus. You don't really know if it's going to be him or if it's going to be someone that's going to lead you to who Perseus is. Perseus is the main bad guy in this game that you're trying to figure out who and where he is so that we can stop him from inciting a nuclear war. Like I said before, this is taking place in the Cold War, so that's always an interesting threat to this whole Call of Duty franchise. The Call of Duty franchise has always dealt with topics of spy, espionage in terms of the campaign missions of the game, but I think this game takes it to a whole new level. And I think that this game, especially with that opening mission where it's like the Fast and the Furious, where you see Paul Walker dangling a guy from a window, is really amazing. You get the option in this game to actually either eliminate him or subdue the threat and detain him and figure out what he knows in terms of the whereabouts of Perseus. This also leads to really crazy and insane action set pieces that happens like running from rooftop to rooftop and then eventually taking down the bad guys. The Call of Duty franchise has always been known from going from point A to point B or looking over the barrel of a weapon while utilizing your optics and your scope or your night vision to help you guide through the missions of the game, and this game is no exception to that rule. And this game still has really awesome gunplay in it. I think the gunplay in this Call of Duty game is really awesome, especially the haptic feedback of the new controller, which the haptic feedback in this Call of Duty game is really realistic. When you actually press down on the controller, it feels like you're actually firing a round in a rifle. The experience of having that ability to fire a weapon in this game and actually feel what that feels like when you're playing the game is really interesting and a little bit freaky in a way, because some of the elements of this game are a little bit hallucinogenic in terms of the context of the story. And so what happens after the events of that rooftop mission where you're assaulting a airstrip on a airbase and your team takes an RC car, which is one of the newer features that's introduced into the multiplayer, where you take an RC car and slam it into the enemy player, where you actually slam it into an aircraft with a whole bunch of Russian action bad guys on it. And it's a really cool action set piece in this game. Call of Duty has been known in the past for crazy, insane action set pieces in it, and I think this game definitely does that and then some. I think that some of the action set pieces are some that you're actually going to be talking about even in the future with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Now, this is a single player story driven narrative, so if you don't like single player story driven narratives in games, you're probably not going to like this one. And this game does introduce stealth based missions. Now, the stealth based missions were introduced in the prior Call of Duty franchise with Modern Warfare 2019 as well as Modern Warfare 2. They did have some stealth based missions, but they weren't heavily featured like they are in Black Ops. There's this mission where you're trying to infiltrate a KGB base, trying to get information on Perseus, as well as letting your buddies in from the inside. And once that happens, you lead into a really cool gunfight in Corridor, which is a really cool set piece that takes place towards the end of that level. But I think that the level itself slows down the pacing of the game, and I think that's one of the things I really didn't like about Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War was these stealth-based missions. I know that some people really do like these stealth-based missions in these games, but I really am not fond of it. I really do like the run-and-gun nature of Call of Duty, where you're going house to house, door to door, knocking down doors along the way and taking out bad guys when you're doing it. But for this game, there's a lot of sneaking missions. There's even a sneaking mission where you go through the mountains and you have a sniper rifle and you're taking out bad guys on the mountaintops, which I think is a really cool action sequence that does lead to some crazy chaotic events that do happen afterwards. So the action in this game is just top notch, and I think that if you're a huge fan of Call of Duty itself, with the minor setbacks that does happen in the campaign, I don't think you're gonna have any issues of actually playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. The campaign in this game is really awesome. The storytelling in this game is just as fun and amazing as it is in the other games in the franchise. I think that people typically overlook the campaign in the Call of Duty franchise. They think it's just another dumb Call of Duty campaign with a lot of really cool action in it, which it does have that, but I think that the campaign in this game is awesome. There is another sneaking level in this game where you're trying to infiltrate a Soviet operative's house and his family's there. You're trying to sneak around and try not to get captured. You're using a black light in that level as well, which is a really interesting feature that was added into this game. You do have a tranquilizer gun and you're trying not to get detected, otherwise it's going to basically kill you. And that mission also brings down the really great pacing story that it does have in this game, but I think that this is a bit of a disjointed story. I don't know why they keep adding these stealth-based missions when they just bog down the runtime of this game and make it a little bit longer than it should be. I think that even in the Warfare games with those stealth-based missions, I always end up trying to either skip those missions or just try and get through them as quickly as it possibly can because I really don't like them. For me personally, I like to, like I said before, go running and gunning and experiencing the over-the-top action set pieces. And I think that with that mission where you're sneaking around the KGB place, as well as the mission in this game where you're infiltrating the Soviet agent's house, I think it really adds to that tense element to the game where you don't really want to get captured or caught, otherwise you know you're going to get screwed and have to redo this mission over again. And I think that with some of the really cool missions in this game, like the Vietnam mission where you're going around taking out this village, and it kind of leads to this really crazy hallucinogenic area of the map where one of the main guys in your team, who kind of looks like Robert Redford, is narrating the whole events that are taking place. He can either choose to go the route that he wants you to go in the game, or you refuse and not give him that information. Just the element of freedom that is in this Call of Duty game compared to some of the other games in the franchise is just insane with what they're able to do, but it doesn't feel like it actually leads to anything in the end, which I think is a little bit disappointing for me personally, who has played the Mass Effect franchise where your choices affect the outcome of the game. This game plays out in a linear fashion, so this is a linear based game, like I said before. So if you don't like linear based games in the Call of Duty franchise, you're probably not going to like this, but people, like I said before, typically go for the multiplayer and then eventually either go for the single player afterwards or just skip it altogether. And I think that for me personally, I like the single player aspect of the game. I used to play multiplayer heavily, and there is no multiplayer gameplay of this review just because I wasn't able to actually get into the multiplayer matches in this game when I actually played it, because I played it on PS4 first, and then by the time I actually got a PS5, nobody was really playing the multiplayer modes anymore. But I think that since it has both the campaign and the multiplayer, which Call of Duty in the past has tried to take away from you, I think it does add that nature where if you're buying this game for the first time, if you're trying to re-experience the campaign, if you want to play the story before the next Black Ops game comes out so that you can better understand what the storytelling in this game is, I definitely think this is worth the time and the money, especially given the fact that this is almost $20 now compared to the $60 it was at launch. And I think that this is one of those Call of Duty campaigns that even the average person who's never played a Call of Duty campaign before, especially with the Black Ops series made by Treyarch, I think that if you're trying to get into this right now, this is definitely the perfect time to start. And I think that one of the really cool missions that really sold Call of Duty Black Ops for me was the Spetsnaz training facility, infiltrating at the start like a Metal Gear style game. There's this big giant pyramid at the center, and then once you're actually in the pyramid itself, realize that this is a training facility and it's got a backlot set. It's a miniature city held in this massive complex, and it's a really cool experience running through the arcade and city streets and the Burger Town style callback that you do get from the Modern Warfare franchise from the original Modern Warfare games, as well as Modern Warfare 2. And then it leads to, like I said before, another crazy action set piece. And I think for me personally speaking, I think this is one of the better Call of Duty games that Activision Blizzard as well as Treyarch has has made in the past couple of years. And I personally think that the musical score in this game is awesome as well, especially with some of the 60s and 80s tracks that are featured within this. I can't really show that, otherwise I'll get a copyright strike on my channel. But I think that for the average player, if you want to go back and listen to some of the tracks that are featured in this game, the score is amazing in this game as well. Even with the Call of Duty campaign score, it really gets you pumped up and ready for action when those action set pieces do take place. I think that this game in of itself is really amazing, and I think that anyone who's a huge Call of Duty fan like myself, like I said before, should play this game because you won't get disappointed. And one of the really cool things is, like I said before, the haptic feedback that is featured in this controller. I think that with the standard issue guns that you do get with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, with some of the old school rifles that are featured in this game for the American as well as the Russian side, whether that's the AK-47s, the AK-47U I do believe is in this, M16, as well as some of the other weapons that are featured within this, you know what you're getting into. And I think that for the average Call of Duty fan who really does like the weapons and mechanics of this game, the gunplay, they do take away one of the gunplay features in this game that was featured in Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 the reboot, where you can mount your weapon on something such as a ledge or even the side of a door and take out your opponents from cover. But I don't think that even with them removing that feature, which I do think was really cool, it really doesn't hurt this game per se. But I think for the average Call of Duty fan, they're not really going to miss that feature in the game. So like I said before, I think that Black Ops Cold War is definitely a video game that you should check out. I think the score in this game is fantastic. The action set pieces in this game are really amazing, especially with some of the more bombastic nature that Call of Duty is known for, kind of like a really big budget Michael Bay action movie. I think that all the voice actors do a really amazing job, including some of the newcomers that do show up in this game. They all have their place to be in the story. They all have a reason for being there. You realize that reason as you're going along. The one-liners in this game are really funny. There's even a really funny sequence that happens in that training facility mission where you're going through the arcade. Now, there are some funny moments in this game, but this game does really take itself seriously as a Call of Duty franchise should. And I think that the action in this game is amazing, and I think the over-the-top nature of this game is definitely as good as it's pretty much been since the very start of the Call of Duty franchise. So I think that with that being said, before I start rambling off on the stuff that I've already said before in this review, I think that I'm going to call this a review for now. But let me know in the comment section down below, did you like or hate Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War? Did you think it was a really great game? Did you think it kind of strayed away from what made Call of Duty great? What are your issues with Call of Duty as a whole, or what are the games in the franchise that you actually happen to like a lot? For me personally, it's still Call of Duty 4, the original Modern Warfare 2, as well as Modern Warfare 3, I think are pretty solid games. And then I really did like the first Black Ops and Black Ops 2, I think were solid. And then Black Ops Cold War is definitely a top 3 in that Black Ops franchise. Now, I do plan on actually reviewing Black Ops 1 as well as Black Ops 2 in the future. I haven't gotten around to that because I need a new hard drive for that, and I've already recorded footage for this, which is the reason why you're seeing this first before any of the older Black Ops games. But maybe in the future I'll actually re-record some gameplay walkthroughs of that and post it on my gaming channel, and then eventually in the future do a whole-on review on those games. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of Black Ops Cold War, the previous installments of the Call of Duty franchise that I have reviewed for you guys on this channel, and I'll get back to you guys in another video. Peace out.
Down there. Come in. Woods, have you found them yet?
Over here! Give me a hand!
Take my hand, Bell. We did it. This is a message to Perseus, and those that'll follow him. We don't just sit back and hope for the best. We'll make the best happen. This is how wars are won, Bell.
Do you have an update on Qasim Javadi?
Yeah. After capturing Qasim Javadi, we've convinced him he's better off working for us rather than against us. The death of Arash Kadivar opens a path for Qasim to take control of their network. He'll give us deeper insight into Soviet activity in the Middle East, and with our resources behind him, he should be able to influence regional affairs for years to come.
What about Anton Volkov?
After his death, elements inside the GDR saw an opportunity to reduce the Russian mob's influence in East Berlin. 2 days ago, in a large-scale midnight raid, Stasi swept through the homes of anyone with connections to Volkov. Men, women, and children were all gone before the sun rose. This will be a major setback to underground Soviet activity in Europe.
How did the cleanup in Havana go?
We were able to recover Agent Azoulay's body from the compound in Cuba. President Reagan personally reached out to his family, and his casket's in transit to Tel Aviv. As you know, Helen Park returned to London. She'll continue to recover from her injuries there. Afterwards, MI6 plans to give her a task force dedicated to finding Perseus.
What about the rest of the team?
They got off Solovetsky before the Soviets could send in forces to investigate. We'll take some time to heal up, then it's back to work.
We may have stopped Perseus, but his rats are still nesting all around us, thanks to the help of one of our own.
True. We failed to hunt down Robert Aldrich and his domestic network of spies. We may have to go to more extreme measures, like broad domestic surveillance, which of course we're not authorized to do.
Not yet. What about Europe?
We may have saved it from getting blown to Kingdom Come, but it's still stacked with Perseus's agents. There's more we could have done there if we'd had the time.
And Bell?
Arctic air. Clears the head, doesn't it? Bell, you made two extraordinary sacrifices to stop Perseus. One was without your knowledge. The other, you made that decision of your own accord. I just want you to know that this little thing that's happened with you and me, it was always for the greater good. You're a goddamn hero, you know that, kid. Heroes have to make sacrifices. That's why when I ask you for one more, I hope you understand. It was never personal.